Well, I still would have opposed the lockdowns, but if I'm confirmed as an NIH director, the kind of thing I would have done is I would have allowed there to be scientific debate and discussion.
Instead of a debate, scientists, the government, and the media justified the lockdowns and censored alternative approaches. Yet, a small group of skeptics, Dr. Bhattacharya among them, opposed lockdowns and suffered the consequences. This is their story.
Jay, how do you think it went?
I had a good time. That was way more fun than I thought it would be.
I don't think it's supposed to be fun.
I don't think so either.
And do you feel it's a little vindication to kind of be appointed to this job in a way, Jay?
I don't know about vindication, but there's this arc where the previous NIH director tried to destroy me. If you're writing a novel, this would be a hokey ending. It's like, now I'm going to be the NIH director.
That might be the ending. But how did the lockdowns begin? The term lockdown derives from prison inmate control, popularized by Hollywood movies.
Nobody escapes. Nobody ever really escapes.
The COVID lockdown began in Wuhan, China.
It was December of 2019. I got a phone call from my CDC office in Beijing, where they had informed me that there was a new respiratory disease that was occurring. They had 27 cases of an unspecified pneumonia that wasn't flu and it wasn't SARS.
Chinese authorities responded with a total lockdown of the city.
They literally were arresting people from their houses, if you remember. They opened quarantine centers. They built new hospitals practically overnight for 25,000 people.
Around China, residents post scenes claiming officials are welding the doors of apartment buildings shut.
The experience of that was absolutely unique. I can't think of an analogy of any large region like that locking down for such an extended period of time. I looked at it from the outside, that just absolutely shocked that such a thing was possible.
Parenting these days is overwhelming. Hey, do either of you know my son? He forgot his lunch. Really? Teenagers. Kids, career, former co-stars who text all the time.
No, that would be me.
Ty, we are literally sitting next to each other.
Julie and I are both real-life parents of teens, so yeah, I do reach out now and then.
Every day?
Maybe every day, with questions.
Really important ones, like, what is aura and do I have it?
Or, why does my daughter keep calling me bruh?
But when Ty texted me, and I quote, "Is meningitis a city in Greece?" I thought this was something we should take seriously, because honestly, I wasn't 100% sure what meningitis was either.
See?
But I think it's something teens can be vaccinated for.
Oh, well, if there's vaccines for it, I know my kids are vaccinated. I'm certain. I'm fairly certain. I think they are. I'm going to text my real wife.
So I called my friend Dr. Rebecca Hall. She offered to jump on a call with me and Ty.
Oh, look, it's a raccoon filter.
But I thought some of us might learn more from a hands-on approach. So Dr. Hall offered to take us on a meningitis educational tour.
We're going to Greece.
real kids to join us on the tour. Not surprisingly, they said no.
So instead, we hired a teen actor to be our kid for the day.
My name is Sam.
Not today, it isn't.
So, meningococcal disease, known as meningitis, is an uncommon but serious illness that can cause permanent complications or even death, sometimes within 24 hours. Among teens and young adults,
The Chinese experience of the lockdowns in January 2020 had a transformative effect on global public health. That experience in January 2020 in China misled the public health officials everywhere into thinking that the lockdowns were a way to make the disease go away, to eradicate the disease.
Italy's health system is overrun.
The pandemic spread out of China, first to Italy, then elsewhere, including the U.S.
The first confirmed U.S. case of the contagious coronavirus now in Washington state.
I'm Alex Azar, Secretary of Health and Human Services.
To manage the U.S. response, President Trump created a coronavirus task force.
We closed up our borders to flights coming in from certain areas.
I remember at the White House press conference, the President talked, Vice President talked, and then Birx talked, then I talked, and then Fauci talked.
My name is Dr. Tony Fauci. I'm the director of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases at NIH.
When Fauci talked, he started his talk by telling the American public he's the lead public health person in the United States. And I had just spoken, and I was a CDC director, and I went to him afterwards and said, Tony, what's that all about? I mean, you run a lab at NIH, but he clearly fell upon him that he had to take that position.
This guidance for the next 15 days is what our experts say.
The president left the pandemic response up to the states, but the task force strongly recommended lockdowns.
Bars, restaurants, food courts, gyms, and other indoor and outdoor venues where groups of people congregate should be closed.
Stay in your homes, social distancing of 6 feet.
Because if it looks like you're overreacting, you're probably doing the right thing.
Everyone was to stay at home, wear masks, maintain 6 feet of social distancing, and schools and businesses were shuttered.
Decisions with a massive impact for working parents and for all the children now spending the school day at home.
Basically, within the span of around a week or so, every school district in the United States of America closed.
We've never had lockdowns at the scale that happened in 2020 globally. That was absolutely unique in world history as far as I know.
Thank you, Mr. President. If I can have the first slide, please.
Advocates for continuing the lockdowns cited mathematical models, especially one from Imperial College London.
In their estimates, they had between 1.5 million and 2.2 million people in the United States succumbing to this virus.
Graham Plattner blamed women for getting raped.
Plattner said to avoid rape, women should act like an adult for F's sake. He's an awful person.
Graham Plattner is dangerous.
I would never vote for Graham Plattner.
So you might be saying, a lot of agencies don't have a PIT policy. But what we did understand is that sometimes had to take measures necessary.
Models were alarming. These mathematical models suggested that there were going to be millions of people dead within a short couple of months if the world didn't lock down. And so I figured what I would do is I would spend my time in essentially running studies to check how many people had already had COVID and recovered.
Do you think it's likely that there are large numbers of Americans who've been infected, recovered, and didn't know it?
Yes, I believe that is true. Very soon we're going to have, a much more accurate understanding of how widespread this is.
Jay Bhattacharya and others studied the population of Santa Clara, California, by taking blood samples and looking for antibodies that would indicate the presence of COVID-19. This would be data from actual people, not just models.
You're going to look at this.
The Santa Clara study was the first of the results to come out,
There are no vehicles really.
and it showed that about 3% of the population had already had COVID and recovered in Santa Clara County. 40% of them never had any symptoms that they remembered in the months before. The death rate then was something like 0.2%, and that there was a very steep age gradient where really it was older people that had the highest risk of death, so as high as 3, 4, 5, 6% from each infection, whereas children, there were no deaths or almost no deaths. Dozens of very similar studies came out in location after location after location all around the world. And we were spot on in the middle of all those studies.
Volume 6.
The study in Santa Clara showed that this virus was far more widespread than people understood, which showed two important conclusions to be made. One was that it's already widespread. You don't lock down after something's widespread, even if a lockdown would work, but that's one of the reasons why lockdowns don't work, because it's already widespread. Secondly, the infection fatality rate was much lower.
The Santa Clara study was the first empirical evidence that lockdowns were the wrong strategy. Not that the epidemic wasn't deadly, but that lockdowns, school closures, social distancing, and the rest wouldn't work. Europe took note, at least in terms of school closures.
At the end of April and the beginning of May, 22 countries in Europe began reopening their schools. And the education ministers from these different countries met at the EU, and they said, we've observed no obvious negative consequences of opening schools. They met a second time in June, and they had the same determination. I thought this would be on the front pages of every newspaper. This would be on every cable news network. This was the news we were waiting for. We were told that we couldn't follow what Europe did if they mentioned Europe at all. When it was mentioned, it was dismissed.
In spite of the new evidence from Santa Clara and from Europe, the task force continued to support lockdowns throughout the U.S.
It is extraordinarily widespread.
The schools stayed closed.
We know that children under 18 are less sick, but there are some that suffer terrible consequences.
So many people are dying in New York City due to coronavirus complications.
Pandemic deaths continue, causing fear and panic.
Crews are burying unclaimed bodies that have been at the morgue for more than 2 weeks.
We're going to be seeing that there are going to be deaths that are going to continue to go up.
Fauci and the task force stoked that fear.
I mean, you can see that there's several hundreds per day in New York.
And the media spread it.
The U.S. passed another grim, tragic milestone. More than 1 million Indian nation have been confirmed infected with coronavirus.
During the pandemic, over and over again, in these large features in the New York Times and other prestigious media outlets, there was zero questioning of what they were being told by health authorities, someone like Anthony Fauci, or by people who fashion themselves public health pundits, who were often interviewed in these outlets.
Throughout the COVID pandemic, you would read the media and it would just be, it was like reading the state media in a totalitarian society. It was just parroting the party line.
This new COVID surge is awful. So follow the Fauci.
Which was why I felt what we did at the Journal at the editorial page was so important. Because we gave voice to sensible dissenting views.
The ultimate confrontation inside Zhongnanhai, escalating. Xi's closest aides are all in trouble. This summer, an invisible net is tightening fast. Welcome back to Final War with Catherine Hu. The power struggle between Zhongnanhai's two rival centers of authority appears to be entering a new phase. What was once a prolonged stalemate may now be approaching a tipping point. In May, something highly unusual happened. The Politburo's regular end-of-month meeting appeared to disappear. Or more accurately, no public record of such a meeting ever emerged. That's highly unusual. At the same time, several of Xi's most trusted figures, Wang Xiaohong, Cai Qi, and even his brother Xi Yuanping, appear to be facing some of the most challenging moments of their political careers. Since the 20th Party Congress in October 2022, there have been only 4 occasions when Xinhua News Agency, the party's official mouthpiece, failed to report the Politburo's regular end-of-month meeting. And each of the previous 3 was followed by a major political shakeup. In May 2023, the meeting was absent from Xinhua's coverage. 1 month later, former Foreign Minister Qin Gang vanished from public view after what would become his final public appearance. In November 2024, the same thing happened again. No reports. That same month, Miao Hua, Xi's most important military ally, a member of the Central Military Commission and a Navy admiral, was placed under investigation for serious disciplinary violations and suspended from his duties. Then came May 2025. Once again, no Politburo meeting appeared in Xinhua's reporting. And 1 month later, the Central Party decision-making and coordination body was formally unveiled. With it came a profound shift in the party's decision-making structure, as authority previously exercised by the Politburo and its standing committee was transferred to the decision-making and coordination body. So when Xinhua News Agency once again failed to report a Politburo meeting in May of this year, there is every reason to suspect that something significant happened inside Zhongnanhai. Either a major case surfaced, or Xi's camp ran into serious trouble. For now, only a few ripples have reached the surface. One of them appeared at the very end of May. On May 30th, Xinhua reported that the Central Committee had decided to appoint Guangji as a member of Standing Committee and Secretary of the Hubei Provincial Party Committee. Wang Zhonglin would no longer serve as Secretary, Standing Committee member, or member of the Hubei Provincial Party Committee, and would be assigned to another position. At first glance, it looked like an ordinary provincial personnel reshuffle, but was it? What exactly might be hidden behind the replacement of Hubei's top party official? First, consider the man who has just been elevated to the top position in Hubei. Guangzhi is not an unfamiliar figure in China's political system. He was cultivated during Li Keqiang's years in Lianing province. After Li's political decline, Guan himself spent years on the sidelines. Then came the turning point. Following the third plenum in July 2024, and amid the re-emergence of party elder Wen Jiabao, Guan was promoted to Minister of Natural Resources in December of that year. Now he has been sent to Hubei. At 56, he becomes China's youngest provincial party secretary. And the political meaning goes far beyond a personnel appointment. It suggests that the reformist camp has regained control of Hubei. a province long regarded as part of Xi's political sphere of influence. Hubei is one of China's top 5 provincial economies and occupies a critical strategic position. But even that may not be the most important part of the story. The real question is what happens next to Wang Zhonglin. That's where things become interesting. Wang Zhonglin's career has deep roots in China's public security, prosecutorial, and judicial system. In 2020, during the most turbulent phase of the Wuhan outbreak, Li Keqiang selected him to replace Ma Guoqiang, who was facing intense criticism over the handling of the crisis. Wang subsequently became party secretary of Wuhan. Then, after party elder Wen's re-emergence in 2024, Wang was elevated again, this time to become Hubei's party secretary.
Why?
That brings us to the real question. Where is Wang Zhonglin going next? The official announcement offered only a familiar phrase, assigned to another position. No further explanation was given, and that omission immediately sparked speculation. Right now, information circulating inside the party appears to be pointing in the same direction.
It's a root
Wang Zhonglin may be the leading candidate to replace Public Security Minister Wang Xiaohong. His professional background, combined with his years of experience in the public security, procuratorial, and judicial system, makes him a natural contender for the post. If Wang Zhonglin ultimately succeeds Wang Xiaohong as Minister of Public Security, the implications would be enormous.
Just above the ground.
It would suggest that she has lost control of the public security system itself.
To 2 feet above
And for Xi, that would be a devastating blow. Because removing Wang Xiaohong would be equivalent to dismantling Xi's personal security force. That is why Wang Xiaohong has become the single most important figure in this entire power struggle. Perhaps even more important than Cai Ji. Wang's fate could help determine whether Xi still has a path towards securing another term. And if Wang were to fall, the psychological impact on Xi's political camp could be profound. If this analysis is correct, it may also explain the unusual silence surrounding the Politburo meeting in May. Because for Xi, the removal of Wang would be an extraordinarily difficult political setback to absorb. It's not only Wang Xiaohong who appears to be under pressure. Trouble also seems to be closing in on Cai Ji. On May 29, 2026, China's top anti-corruption bodies, the Central Commission for Discipline Inspection, CCDI, and the National Supervisory Commission, announced that Dong Guibo, the former party secretary and director of Zhejiang's State-Owned Assets Supervision and Administration Commission, was suspected of serious disciplinary and legal violations. According to the announcement, he voluntarily surrendered himself and is now under investigation. At first glance, the story looked unremarkable. Dong is not a senior national figure. His rank was relatively modest, but his political connections are another matter entirely. During Cai Ji's years in Zhejiang province, Dong was one of...
Lockdown hysteria created odd, even absurd features of daily life.
The CHO High Band in Cameron isn't allowing COVID-19 to stop them from playing together.
Just the idea that you can walk into a restaurant wearing a mask, and then you can sit down and eat with the mask off, and the virus isn't going to get you, it's just absurd.
Don't forget to keep your mask on in between bites.
We closed skate parks, beaches that were closed.
A paddleboarder is chased down by law enforcement for being out on the water at Malibu Beach.
He was alone in the ocean. How many lives were saved by that?
Not everyone fell in line. A few anti-lockdown protests popped up throughout the country.
A friend of mine actually organized a protest of a hymn sing in Idaho. He got arrested for the act of singing as an act of protest. At the same time, there were, in that summer, huge protests related to the death of George Floyd. Public health responded to this by condemning the anti-lockdown protest. But 1,000 or more public health leaders signed a petition saying that the George Floyd protests were appropriate.
According to this statement, systemic racism is an even bigger public health problem than COVID. It's all ideological. It has no bearing on science or reality.
President Trump was becoming dissatisfied with the advice from the task force, so he turned to lockdown skeptic Scott Atlas.
Jared Kushner, who was a senior advisor to President Trump at the time, said to me, well, we'd like you to be an advisor to the president. And I said, well, I'm happy to do that. And then he said, but I'm worried that when it becomes public, they're going to destroy you. The media will destroy you. So that didn't sound so good to me. I'm not a political person, but I'm going to say the truth no matter what. And so on July 31st, I flew back to Washington with an uncertain term of engagement in the beginning.
Those advocating for a never-ending blanket nationwide lockdown have no answer for what it would do to the mental, physical, and social health of millions of American children and people.
So I was helping give him the facts for his press conferences. And he said to me, by the way, you want to go out there with me? So I said, okay.
Shop the Kate Spade Margot bag.
At Dead River Company, we know your trust is earned. It's an every answered call, every on-time delivery. That's who we are. Will always be. Dead River Company, earning your trust for generations.
And so I went out. It was that sort of sudden.
I'd like to ask Scott to come up, please, and say a few words. Thank you, Scott.
They should have a duo something, so it's a duo.
Thank you, Mr. President. It's
mirror.
obviously a great honor to be here and great honor to serve this president who's really focused on the very important parts of the pandemic.
There was this deference, though, to Dr. Fauci, which I noticed. Dr. Fauci was not in charge of anything on the task force. Dr. Birx was in charge of the medical side.
He was my mentor, so I'm going to have to let him speak.
The small print here, it's really small print. Scientists, because they're trying to present data, may be looked upon as being authoritative figure, and the pushing back on authority is pushing back on government is the same as pushing back on science.
Dr. Fauci at one point leaned over this sort of oval conference table and said, one of the problems is the public is not afraid enough. And I was shocked to hear something like this. And I interrupted. I said, can you repeat that? Dr. Fauci said, that's the problem. The people are not afraid enough, so they won't listen. I think it's sort of obvious, but I said, you know, that's unethical. That's not the way public health is supposed to be done. It's unethical, in my opinion, to use fear in an emergency to manipulate people.
It's a false narrative to take comfort in a lower rate of death.
Not all states followed Fauci and Birx's guidance. Florida most notably.
Governor DeSantis called me up and he said, I'd like you to come down. We cannot close the schools. We are going to open all the schools in Florida for the 2020 school year. And he and I flew all over the state of Florida. and held press conferences and gave the data on why the schools should open.
We understand, I think, a little bit better now the importance of having society function. Part of that is having K through 12 and universities open.
The governor of Florida, the Secretary of Education of Florida, had ordered all the schools to have an in-person option. And the teachers union sued to close the schools. And I was an expert in that case. The folks on the state told me that I was the only expert they could find that was arguing for opening schools. It was an easy case for me to make. I just pointed to what happened in Europe, and the evidence was very, very clear about the harms of closing schools, of course, to kids.
All schools should be making plans to resume in-person classes as soon as possible.
The president was being attacked for speaking against, really, the White House coronavirus task force recommendations. He was for opening the schools and opening society. But the real official federal policy was the task force. That was led by Dr. Birx. Dr. Birx wrote all the recommendations personally to every governor, to every public health official. And she said lockdown, school closures, masks, 6-foot spacing.
You've used the word panicked and worried to describe teachers. You've said parents should also be panicked.
Frankly, the administration turned their back on the virus and now it's surging.
I was beside myself and I said, okay, now what do I do? So I called up Martin Kulldorff of Harvard and I said, there's someone named Sunetra Gupta in the UK who's saying exactly what I'm saying.
Let them get on with their lives. Let them go to school and receive something that is incredibly valuable to them.
Any way we could get her to come in and meet with the people in Washington. He got a small economics institute in Massachusetts to pay her airfare, as long as she stopped there first, and Martin and Jay Bhattacharya would get together and they would have a discussion and maybe do a video of something on the way to Washington.
I knew Martin Kulldorff by having interviewed him. He had reached out to me and said, are you interested in meeting with me and a few other public health professionals to hear more about an alternative approach to the pandemic? Well, wow, why would I possibly turn that down? And off I went to Great Barrington, Massachusetts. You show up at this kind of Gatsby-esque estate off in the countryside. Whoa, this is kind of a weird thing. They're giving us a tour. I think there was this sort of cage in the basement where they kept gold, possibly.
The adventures of being in different countries and cultures has always been such a thing that I think I've been really addicted to. I love it. The most fun part of the day is the hour and a half that we're on stage. There's a lot of traveling involved, but you got to do that to bring music to the people. You got to get on the road and whatever it takes, tour bus, airplane, rental cars, just get out there and go, man. It's fun.
We've got a special speaker this afternoon. Thanks for coming in. Please welcome Robin Frankenreiter.
All right, let's get back to action. This is take 2 of the Ask Me Anything tour. Willie's Remedy, San Juan. Rolling speed and sound. Here we go. I love playing music the most. Playing music in front of people, that's sort of like, memories that you can't really buy. They just kind of, you get on the road and all that just happens, and it's like nothing else. It's really a magical moment when that all comes together. Some people are completely different on stage. They even call themselves different names, but with an acoustic guitar, being a singer-songwriter, you really don't have a lot to hide behind. I don't know how that would feel to be anything but yourself.
Oh no.
You could go do 30 shows through America and never see any of those cities if you don't get off the bus. So to get up and walk around and see what's going on in that town or go downtown somewhere, it's really incredible to kind of bring that feeling and those emotions to your show that night. So I always try to get off the bus as early as possible.
And the vehicle also make
wandered around the estate, and there's these wonderful, ornate faucets in the sink and like bear claw tubs. The plan was that I was going to interview Jay, Martin, and Sunetra to learn about what is this alternative approach to the pandemic that they have. I had no idea that they were going to put together some sort of declaration. The next morning, I think it was Sunetra's husband sitting at like a dining table with his laptop, banging away, polishing off the declaration, and I'm sort of peeking over his shoulder. And that's when I learned that, they're actually putting together some sort of formal document outlining what they had discussed.
We wrote this declaration with the hope of telling the world that we were following the wrong strategy. The lockdown was the wrong strategy. I look back on it, it wasn't a particularly original idea. This is the way we managed pandemics in the past. The Great Barrington Declaration, I had two components. One was focused protection of vulnerable people. In this case, primarily older people, and some folks with some other conditions. And we were not doing enough to protect those folks. The other part of the declaration was that we should lift the lockdowns. We should open the schools. We should let young people go about their normal life. Because the harms of the closures was more damaging to the health and well-being of young people than the protection that those lockdowns afforded to them against COVID.
Well, the Great Barrington Declaration was simply an application of standard epidemiological theory to COVID. It would have been completely uncontroversial a year earlier.
After putting the declaration up on their website, the three scientists went to Washington and, as Scott Atlas planned, met with HHS Secretary Alex Azar. Meanwhile, the declaration was creating quite a stir.
Almost 1 million people signed the declaration. Tens of thousands of doctors and scientists signed on as well. It was absolutely remarkable. It was very clear that there were millions and millions of people around the world that were thinking this before. That was the first response I got to the declaration. I knew another response was coming. I knew a more negative one was coming, but the first was quite hopeful.
I think I heard about it at one of the White House coronavirus task force meetings when there were people mumbling in a non-positive way. So it was a lot of mumble, but very presented in a very negative light, to everybody.
4 days after we wrote the Great Barrington Declaration, Francis Collins, the director of the NIH, wrote an email to Tony Fauci calling for a devastating takedown of the declaration and calling me, Martin Kulldorff, and Sunetra Gupta fringe epidemiologists.
I think Collins saying in his email, which he can't take back now, he made it very clear that about Jay Bhattacharya, we got to take him down. What scientists talk like that? Got to take him down. What do you mean take him down?
The government working to suppress scientific theories strikes me as a pretty serious breach.
Yeah, I think it was really wrong. I'm not sure, whether I'm going to say it was the government or scientists in the government. But I do know that Collins and Fauci were trying to suppress it. I do know the scientific community was trying to suppress it. I knew the scientific journals were trying to suppress it. I knew the scientific media was trying to suppress it. And ultimately, you got social media to suppress it. But because they were pressured to do that by, I would argue, the government scientists.
Many serious scientists critiqued the Great Barrington Declaration, claiming that if implemented, millions would die.
What it led to was death threats for me, essentially a propaganda campaign, alleging that I wanted to let the virus rip, that I wanted to kill people, none of which was true. It led to op-eds that misread the declaration, that demonized around the term herd immunity.
Herd immunity is a biological phenomenon that when people get infected, they have natural immune protection that blocks the chain of spread. This is a known biological phenomenon. I've spoken with Jay and Martin about this, back at the time. They never wanted people to purposefully get infected, but rather they said people should go about their lives in the same way you would in any normal flu season.
It was as if the entirety of the world's public health establishments and medicine decided that we were anathema.
I always have to remind myself that parents aren't supposed to be doing this alone. I'll need a little support. And Smarty Pants Kids Multi and Omega supports my kid's brain health. That's just one small way I can show up for my kid. Well, he gets to just be a kid. Watching him play like this always reminds me of my own childhood, especially those Toy Story days where everything felt alive with imagination. It already gets me choked up, but I know that these are the moments that I'll miss one day. Nostalgia definitely hits differently when your kid experiences the same joy you once did. It's just like getting to experience a second joy.
The expert class failed, and their way of operation was to stop others from disagreeing with them by delegitimizing them, by calling for censure. I was censured by the Senate faculty at Stanford, which is ludicrous. I got a lot of death threats. I had to have 24/7 police security in my home. In Palo Alto, when I came back from Washington, one of the safest neighborhoods in the country. Cancel culture is effective. In fact, I had hundreds of emails from scientists all over the country saying, Scott, you're 100% right, we agree, but we're not going to speak. We're afraid for ourselves and our families.
Now, years later, can we measure the relative success of locking down versus not locking down?
Florida had lower all-cause excess deaths, that is, the lower total deaths relative to what would have been expected through the whole pandemic than California did.
Excess death, for people listening to this, means the deaths above and beyond what you would have during a non-pandemic year. Because you're trying to say what happened because of the pandemic. But when you say death, you're eliminating all the question of, well, was it from COVID or with COVID? You're just saying dead. And that also includes death from lockdowns, death from everything that was beyond what you would have without the pandemic. That's excess death.
Excess deaths during the pandemic and beyond were comparable in Florida and California, if you adjust for the greater number of older people in Florida.
They had roughly average numbers of COVID deaths, but they didn't have the downside of all the lockdown.
If Florida was the most prominent outlier state, Sweden was the most prominent outlier country.
Cafes, restaurants and shops never shut here. You'll struggle to see a face mask here. The government has refused to recommend them. At the hospital with the biggest intensive care unit for those infected, the doctors say they are not overwhelmed.
Sweden did better than Germany. Germany had these terrible lockdowns. They're right next door to each other. They both have healthcare systems that are universal, in many ways comparable, and yet Sweden did not lock down, and they have lower all-cause excess deaths than Germany did through the whole pandemic. Their kids have suffered no learning loss. The economic damage done was much less. The Swedish response was a model for the pandemic.
Whatever its scientific merits, the Great Barrington Declaration's suppression, especially by government, raises First Amendment and ethical issues.
So help you God, so help me God. Congratulations, Mr. President.
Almost from the beginning of the Biden administration, they weaponized government, aiming to control the speech around the treatment for COVID, the effectiveness of lockdowns, the harms of lockdowns, school closures, masks, you name it. High government officials, including inside the White House itself, would go to social media companies and threaten them telling social media companies who and what to censor.
Okay, so these 12 people who you have on a list, 12 individuals, do they know that somebody at the Surgeon General's office is going through their profile?
Our biggest concern here, and I frankly think it should be your biggest concern, is the number of people who are dying around the country because they're getting misinformation that is leading them to not take a vaccine.
So the effort to combat so-called misinformation and disinformation was really an effort to censor views that contradicted the official views, some of which were truthful and some of which weren't. But it was, it's another way in which we became more totalitarian. The Journal, by the way, was one of the targets of this censorship. We had a couple of articles that were suppressed on Facebook as a result of the Biden administration's jawboning.
I'll say what I want to say, and if the consequence of that is losing money, so be it.
Elon Musk bought Twitter to defend free speech, saying, "Let that sink in."
The degree to which various government agencies had effectively had full access to everything that was going on Twitter blew my mind.
He invited journalists to examine Twitter's record, including David Zweig, in what became known as the Twitter files.
We were all in this sort of internal room, kind of like a airless, windowless room. There was at least one, if not several, minders with us at any given period of time, and we were told that we could search for different individuals' names and try to find out what Twitter was doing to their particular profiles. Was there some sort of suppression or a flag added to someone's account that they should deboost them in some way or another? But we did see on Jay Bhattacharya's account that there was a flag on there. I forget the terminology that was used, but it was some sort of, this person should be deboosted, was on his account.
Parenting these days is overwhelming. Hey, do either of you know my son? He's got his lunch. Really? Teenagers. Kids, career, former co-stars who text all the time.
Later, Elon Musk invited Jay Bhattacharya himself to visit Twitter.
I got to look and see my file. Turned out that I had been placed on a blacklist by Twitter the day I joined Twitter. Almost certainly at the behest of the Biden administration.
And we also know that the United States government, on numerous occasions, had pressured social media companies to do this type of action, that they encouraged them. Now, the argument that people on the other side would say, well, they never forced them to do it. But, to me, this is a bit like, nice social media platform you got there. Shame if something happened to it.
And when the government comes calling and says, you really need to do this, if you don't do this, you're going to kill people, which is exactly what President Biden said publicly, it's almost impossible for these social media companies to resist.
What's your message to platforms like Facebook?
They're killing people. I mean, it really, look, the only pandemic we have is among the unvaccinated. And they're killing people.
I saw an interview with Mark Zuckerberg and Joe Rogan, unfortunately 4 years after the fact.
These people from the Biden administration would call up our team and scream at them and curse, and it's like these documents it's all kind of out there.
Did you record any of those phone calls?
I don't think we but I think
I want to listen.
I mean, there are emails. the emails are published. It's all kind of out there. And then at some point, Biden, when he gave some statement at some point, I don't know if it was a press conference or to some journalists, where he basically was like, these guys are killing people. I don't know. Then all these different agencies and branches of government basically just started investigating, coming after our company. It was brutal.
Well, the truth is, science, thrives when we have open and honest debate. We don't do well.
No, I thought we were
say, I am science, and if you disagree with me, you disagree with science. No, we have a scientific debate.
If you don't have free speech, you cannot have science. Science depends on the ability for scientists to freely speak their minds.
With Jay Bhattacharya heading the NIH, do we have a hokey and happy ending? Have we as a nation learned the right lessons from our response to COVID?
That's my greatest fear, is that we didn't learn the lessons from COVID. Because the lessons are more than the concrete data analysis type lessons about viral respiratory infections. That's not the big lesson. We're a country founded on freedom. We are the world's beacon of freedom. We have codified freedom of assembly, freedom of speech, freedom of worship. And we broke all of those guaranteed freedoms. And if freedoms can be taken away during any scenario, including emergency, then they're not guaranteed freedoms.
The fact that it happened in this country where I never thought I would see suppression of free speech in such an insidious way, behind closed doors, where people didn't even know they were being censored. Again, at scale, where literally millions and millions of people have their free speech rights suppressed in this way, still shocks me. I want to work toward making sure that never happens again.
Americans generally don't want to look back at COVID. Most of us would rather forget and return to normal life. But we need to remember not just who's gone. Next crisis, will we defend freedom of speech, especially in science? We, the people, are responsible for guarding all our inalienable rights, no matter who runs the government or what excuse they give.
This video and sees you were trying to throw him under the bus, you're not going to be too happy.
Do what you can, where you can, what you have, and don't worry about this. One day at a time. Don't worry about what might happen tomorrow. Don't worry about what may happen a year from now or 6 months from now. Just do the very best you can. This is his car.
So I've talked about this in the videos in the past where people run from the vehicle and claim they weren't the driver. We had one the other day where a girl crashed the car and she was trying to say it wasn't her when it was her, but a lot of times they'll get those markings from the airbag on their face or on their hands.
Graham Plattner blamed women for getting raped. Plattner said to avoid rape, women should act like an adult for F's sake. He's an awful person. Graham Plattner is dangerous. I would never.
Hyundai right here is a nurse that stopped to give aid. This guy was looking left to see about turning in traffic, turning to go eastbound. The motorcycle went right past him. He was still looking left, and then he just saw it come flying back. I'm going to start getting witness statements for all of it.
You got anything on you that poke me, stick me, or hurt me while we're doing this? Okay, go ahead and turn around back at the window. Just get past you down, make sure you got nothing on you.
Can my husband take his vehicle?
Nope, we're towing it.
Everyone that I told had to stay, I'm going to be bringing you over one at a time. Give you a statement as to what you got within the scene.
I just bit my tongue.
They were all actually free to leave at any point, but and I love the that he's taking authority as
Turn around for me. Alright, I'm going to bring you some tests. Alright? I'm going to put my hand out. You gotta look at the tip only. Okay? How much do you have to drink today?
2 drinks.
2 drinks? What time did you start drinking at?
4 o'clock.
4?
They always say 2 drinks. And the reason why you need to know what time to drink it at is because when you start drinking, your level of intoxication is not always equal. So depending on the time from the time you were drinking is when you can kind of figure out whether they were going up or whether they were coming back down off of their
right now, 96%.
Where were we drinking at?
Buffalo Wines.
Buffalo Wild Wings. Okay, were they 2 small glasses, big glasses?
Short.
Short?
Yeah.
Okay, what'd you drink? Beer?
Yeah.
A beer.
A beer and
So typically, I'm not critiquing. I mean, a lot of times you say, what did you have to drink? What type of alcohol did you have to drink? You don't want to follow it up with answering the question for him by saying beer, because then you can tell the pause and then she says, yeah. Well, now she's saying she had a shot of vodka, so I think it's better to let them say, what type of alcohol were you drinking at Buffalo Wild Wings? And then you let them answer, as opposed to answering for them.
a shot of vodka.
What size? That big, 2 of those? 2 small?
You might be wondering how I got here. All I needed was paper towels. I would be in and out in a couple of minutes. But one deal led to another. That's it. void, and another. And another. By the time I spotted the paper towels, my hands were full. Moral of the story, you're gonna need a cart. Ocean State Job Lot, everything you need and everything you didn't know you needed.
We've got a squad of rowdies and a bench full of bombshells.
Who's got zero game and who'll go all the way?
Love Island, it's all kicking off.
Any idea why I might have stopped you? You were speeding. You thought, but you were in front of me, so you already won the race. Well, it's because that's what's called a pace. So pacing is when I do the same speed as you do. So
and said one of the problems is the public is not afraid enough. And I was shocked to hear something like this. And I interrupted. I said, "Can you repeat?"
93. Yes. So
I interrupted. I said, "Can you repeat that?"
This is episode 19. One of my favorite episodes, just a great back and forth conversation with my suspect. It performed well initially.
When Fauci talked, he started his talk by telling the American public he's the lead public health person in the United States.
Right to the road.
When Fauci talked, he started his talk by...
You would still be speeding. 93 is also a criminal amount of speed. So just so you know, do your turn signals work? Are you sure? You know how I don't know? Because you never used one. So how much have you had to drink today? I'd say I can smell it coming out of the car. Okay. Do you favor, hop on with me to meet me over in the back here so we can talk. Yeah, come on. Okay. So, well, first of all, you do because there's Supreme Court case law that says you have to. Make sure you're careful. There we go. Hop on out here. There we go. Just come up over here. You can leave that on. So, no, it's gonna blow away. Okay. Well, you don't have a choice. And the reason for that.
No, he doesn't like Sam. No.
Yeah, step on. I just don't want you in between the cars. Actually, keeping that on for your safety is a great idea.
I had a beer after work. I was looking for a hotel.
Why?
Give me speeding ticket and go.
Okay, do me a favor. Let's look this way. Let's look this way. Right. Put your hands behind your back. Right now, what you're gonna be is you're gonna be under arrest. Okay, you're under arrest for criminal speed. So you committed an offense.
If you're wondering why I placed him under arrest so quickly, it's because of all the pre-fight indicators that I saw. So he started ramping up, his voice got higher, his movements started getting more exaggerated, he became more aggressive, and I wanted to cut that off right at the knees. I didn't want to get into a fight with this guy on the side of the road. I didn't want to use any force more than the minimum that I could possibly use to take him into custody. So before he really got ramped up, I got handcuffs on him, obviously no use of force, everything was fine. Later on in my conversation, he ends up saying that if he didn't have those cuffs on, that he would punch me in the face. So I was pretty glad to have those on, because then I don't have to have a boxing match on the side of the road, because I'm not a boxer.
And I stopped you for that offense. Okay? So when you said, I can get my attorney on that, if you are going to get an attorney on me, because I arrested you for a criminal offense to which you committed, I will take that, because I feel like I'm on the mountain of right, and your driving puts you in the valley of wrong.
Mountain of right and valley of wrong is a term that I've used for almost my whole career. I picked it up, I think, in a conversation with a dispatcher, like 20 years ago, like a long time ago. And I think it's just it stuck with me and seemed like a really easy way to delineate right from wrong and to explain people's positions, either on the mountain or in the valley. So it started then, and I've been using it ever since.
I would be remiss, as a member of the Pinal County Sheriff's Office Traffic Unit, as a lifelong arrest for impaired drivers, if I didn't at least conduct a full...
All America, all the time. Sit down, buckle up, and get ready for the Dan Bongino Show.
Folks, it's 10 a.m. Remember, do you guys, are you old enough to remember, who in the chat room, what was it, they give a time like 8 p.m. You know where your children are. Do you remember that? Justin's like, I have no idea what you're talking about. Justin's, 16 or something years old, so he's like, I don't know, man. Do you remember that in the chat? It's 10 a.m. Do you know how hot the news cycle is? I had to change the title of the show. You got President Trump, who just wrapped up an interview a little bit ago on Fox and Friends on Iran. You got Supreme Court decisions coming up any minute. on huge cases. We've got Congressman Jim Jordan coming up at the end of the show today about Act Blue, SPLC, censorship, debanking, all of the stuff his committee and his office have been working on. It's a really stacked show today. You got some hot mic audio that's not great of Gretchen Whitmer, governor of Michigan, just blowing up our own spot. Folks, with these new, the cameras everywhere and the cell phones everywhere and Meta glasses and remember like the old Google Glass, but this is going to be ubiquitous in the future. Even, the Bluetooth earpieces are going to be recording. If you're a politician, you're going to be recorded digitally just about everywhere you go. So you got to watch what you say. So I'll get to that. Loaded stack show today. Don't go anywhere. Let's get to it. Today's show brought to you by Car Shield. I rely on my car for just about everything. Commuting, quick errands, family getaways. So when something's not working correctly, it's more than just a hassle. It's a big hassle. Throws your whole routine out of balance. I've been there. Having a weird noise, suddenly you're preparing for this massive bill that's coming your way. You don't need that in your life. Here's what I do like. Car Shield. Car Shield helps protect you from those surprise expenses. They've got 24/7 roadside assistance, towing, even rental car options so you're not stranded. You take your car to an ASE certified mechanic nationwide. Their plans are month to month with low deductibles. It just makes your life easier. They've been doing this for over 20 years. They cover over 2 million vehicles, and people actually rate them highly, which matters to me. Drive with zero worries thanks to Car Shield. Right now, Car Shield is offering our listeners 20% off with the code Bongino at carshield.com/Bongino. Do not let an unexpected breakdown ruin your day. Get covered with Car Shield today, and drive with confidence. Go to carshield.com/Bongino. Do it. Use code Bongino now for 20% off. Thanks, Car Shield. Today's show also brought to you by Super Sure Insurance. Ladies and gentlemen, if you have a lot of insurance needs, you have a lot of brokers out there, you want to clean up the process, make it easy, go to Super Sure Insurance. You sign your insurance policy. For some brokers, that's the finish line. Handshakes, commissions, done. Then you may not hear from them again until it's time for renewal. Well, your business doesn't only run a renewal time, it runs all year, and so do the gaps and the risks. That's why I'm introducing you to Super Sure. If your company has more than 25 employees, whether you're the owner, CFO, or HR manager, it can be too complex to just buy a policy online. Super Sure is the super agency built for you. Licensed in every state for your business insurance and employee benefits, all with year-round support for you and for your team. At supersure.com, you can access tools like the fine print facts, which translates your current policy into plain English, so you see what's covered and what's not. Important, right? Plus a business value calculator, so you can estimate what your business is worth, so you can know what actually needs protected. Go to supersure.com/Bongino. One super agency, one powerful platform, all your policies in one place. Go to supersure.com/Bongino. That's supersure.com/Bongino. Consult with a licensed insurance producer to discuss coverage options for your specific business needs. Paid for by Supersure Insurance LLC. Supersure Insurance Agency LLC, a licensed insurance agency. Thank you, Supersure. All right, fellas, let's go. So, ladies and gentlemen, it's getting really hot back in Iran again as it goes kinetic again. I told you yesterday
It's 10 p.m.
really hard to
Do you know where your children are?
about that. That is good. It was 10 p.m. I thought it was 10 p.m. I was going to say that, and I was like, was it 10 or 8 p.m.? That was a real thing. It happened all the time. The answer with me when I was younger was most of the time no, because me and my brothers were maniacs growing up. We would just pop in at all times. So thank you for finding that. Very funny. It is getting hot over the skies in Iran as the goes kinetic again. President Trump and his Secretary of War and our brave military men and women are taking out targets in Iran. As I said yesterday, I've been very clear on this, unambiguous in any way, black or white. I just need to understand what your debating position, if you're against these attacks in Iran, are. And it's fine. You're perfectly entitled to your opinion. I've said over and over, I'm not mad or upset at anyone when our men and women are in harm's way for saying, hey man, we'd like to understand why. I get it. I'm with you 100%. I've never been a big global interventionist. In this case, however, with the Death to America crowd and what I learned, I'm completely confident President Trump made the right decision. But being schizophrenic about it is not helping. When President Trump engages in, prolonged negotiations to try to avoid a kinetic confrontation, people say, I can't believe he's checking it out. And then when President Trump engages in a kinetic action to get them back to the negotiating table and make strikes, I can't believe that the U.S. military is engaged in an illegal war. It's illegal. Are you insane?
Once you start hitting,
just pick a position. Pick a position.
Right.
He was President Trump this morning talking about Carg Island. Now, this is really important because Carg Island would be, no question about it, if we were to take Carg Island, there will have to be some boots on the ground. That would be a change in the kinetic posture of the Trump administration. Zero doubt about that. Taking Carg Island would basically cut off the revenue source for the Iranian regime almost completely at this point and isolate them. Now, the question I have, and I'll play for you the cut, just happened on Fox and Friends a little bit ago. The question I have for you is, knowing President Trump and the way he negotiates, where he takes a maximalist position, he takes a position of 120 when he's really looking for 80, and then he comes down and it gets a 90. He's still better than 80. I don't know if this is a threat or if he's doing it to get them back to the table. So we'll see. But this would definitely be a change in the posture of the Trump administration. Here's what he said this morning on Fox and Friends phone interview. Check this out.
Dying to make a deal. They want to make a deal so badly. And they're really in submission. They just don't know it yet. Look, my preference has always been take Carg Island. That's been, Brian knows that. I spoke to him a long time ago. Lawrence knows it. I don't know that America has the stomach for it, to be honest with you. You're going to make a fortune. But I don't know that America has the stomach. I think they'd like to see us come home, but we did it with Venezuela. Venezuela's worked out great for everybody. We've taken millions and millions of barrels of oil out of Venezuela. We brought them to Houston and various other places, Louisiana. We're refineries that we have that are incredible. They're going 24 hours a day, making a fortune. And I like that in this case too. But I'm not sure the country has the appetite for it. Does that make sense to you?
I understand where you're
good as it is. By the way, as good as it is, that's always been my number one thing. But as good as it is, I'm not sure the country has the appetite for it, and that's okay. I understand that.
That is a critical segment. Folks, I know there's a lot of discord within the Republicans. Forget the Democrats. I just want the United States to forget them. As I'm going to bring up later in the show, I swear to you, if Trump cured hepatitis and cancer tomorrow, they would cheer on hepatitis and cancer. Forget those morons. They're just being imbeciles, and they just hate the country. For the Republicans who object to kinetic action in Iran, I understand. I get it. But I want you to know, I'm not the Trump whisperer. Donald Trump does what Donald Trump wants. He got elected president, not me. He is the commander-in-chief. He's not doing this because it's politically popular. He's well aware of the effect on oil markets and inflation and the PPI. He's well aware of that. He's doing what he believes is the right thing. But for those saying that he's not receptive to his own MAGA or conservative audience, I was glad Guy cut that clip when he did. We listened to it before the show. Because he clearly says at the end, if I have to take Carg Island to basically finish what we started over there, then I'm going to do it. But I'm well aware that there are some people out there who are not ready for this. The politicians never say that because he's not a politician. Yes, he's an elected official, but in the sense of, yes, he's literally a puppet. What I mean by that is he doesn't take the traditional talking points and filter them through this kind of political lens. He just talks like a businessman from Queens who understands he has to do something unpopular but believes it's the right thing to do. But he wants you to know. He wants you to know. It's almost like an act of kind of empathy with you in the beginning. He wants you to know he understands. You know, when I was knocking on doors running for office myself, one of the best pieces of advice I ever got from a really prominent politician was people hate having their door knocked on by a politician. They want to throw you off their porch or they're stupid, as we used to call it in New York. So one of the first things you should do is say, hey, I'm really sorry to bother you. I know you probably hate politicians knocking at your door, but it automatically disarms people who understand you. That's what Donald Trump's doing here. He's not naive to this. So it's also why I bring up, like, is this a threat to get them back to the table? Is he going to do it? I don't know. We'll see. He said tonight So we'll have a lot to report on tomorrow, where it's going to be another banger of a news day. I just can't stand, again, the left and their schizophrenic debating position, who, again, I swear to you, if the Trump administration cured Ebola tomorrow, they would have signs up like #1 foamy finger, go Ebola. It's just sickening. These are the death to America terrorists who've been responsible on battlefields from Iraq all over the world to the Cafe Milano incident around the United States and around the world for killing Americans. Let's stop pretending these are like the three musketeers of virtue in Iran. And you get this lunacy from the other side. Did you see this? It's at some random Twitter account. Honestly, I never heard of. But it's just so epidemic of what you see amongst the lunaticocracy out there. Here's this account. It's a Persian girl or something. Man, I'm comparing the United States basically to terror groups. Last night, the most powerful army in the world bombed water reservoirs in Iran, leaving people without drinking water. They're referring to us. I can't remember even ISIS doing something like that. Americans, are you proud of your terrorist regime and army? Well, this got pretty ugly for a Persian girl, a verified account on X, because they went on to ask Grok, did ISIS ever bomb water reservoirs? This is a really inconvenient answer. Talk about a kick in the nuts. Yes, ISIS repeatedly weaponized water infrastructure in Iraq and Syria. They seized major dams and reservoirs, even list them, flooded villages, cut off drinking water in civilian areas, and sabotaged booby-trap plants.
What about this is being bullied? You're going to enforce it, I know.